us. We appreciate you being here for these hearings, appreciate what you all do for the city of Longmont. I'm going to be the timekeeper. Because it's a publicly noticed hearing, we report it and share it on our City of Longmont YouTube page. I'll run down on how this is going to go, and we're going to give you a chance for introductions as well, so we know who we're talking to. We're going to have about a 15-minute session of Q&A from the board and staff, and then we'll give Gina and Lisa, give you your time for 5 minutes at the end if you want to share anything. So before we do that, why don't we let you all introduce yourselves? The board and I will introduce ourselves, and then we will get going.
Okay, I'm Gina Earls. I'm the executive director at Blue Sky Bridge.
And I'm Lisa Gills. I'm our development officer and I work on our grants.
All right, board, who wants to go first?
I can go first. Hi, Lisa. I don't know if you recognize me. Our kids
I
from the
do
same
indeed. Nice to see you early on a Saturday.
Exactly. I'm Kim Strenga. This is my second term on the board, and we're happy to have you here this morning.
Thanks.
And I'm Cassie Lau, and it's my first term on the board, and I'm also happy to be here with you.
You know me, Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate this process. So I'm going to go ahead and start the 50-minute timer and see if the board has any questions.
I just have one question, and I'm curious to know, with the increase in population in general in the area, if demand for your services have changed, and if so, does it look different than historically you've been providing those services to the community?
Everything about Blue Sky Bridge changes constantly, which is wonderful, and our ability to just kind of pivot and kind of go where we need to be has been great. The biggest place where that is true is mostly in our prevention education program, where we are serving more and more and more kids and families and adults, and where we have an opportunity to talk about body safety and trusted adults and all of the great things that helps keep our community safe. Interestingly, we're finding more and more of a connection between that prevention education program and our intervention services, which is where we provide forensic interviews and family advocacy and medical exams that eventually leads to our therapy program as well. And we're finding that, I mean, don't get me wrong, we still are serving lots and lots of children every single year for horrific things that are happening to children and families. But what we're finding is that, and we're hoping to do a research project coming up, hopefully this year if we can secure the funding, but everything's challenging right now. But what we're finding anecdotally is that children are coming in and talking about their abuse using terminology they've learned in the classrooms. And what's happening is kids are getting out of these situations sooner or stopping them before the situation gets worse. So both of our forensic interviewers have come from other places, bigger metro areas, or just different from Atlanta and Denver. And they have been marveling at how different abuse a lot of times looks here in Boulder County, and for the Longmont children as well as for the rest of Boulder County. And so we're starting to track this a little bit more carefully. And we really need a researcher to help us do that better. But, and so, yes, the population is growing and our numbers on the intervention side aren't. And we are believing that that is because of our incredible prevention education program, where we are hoping that we are really making a huge difference that could have ramifications well beyond our community here.
I'm going to jump in and just add to what Gina said, just to give you an idea of what the prevention education program is like. And it's in our application, but there's so much there. Last year, it reached over 6,600 elementary school kids. And the programs focus primarily on kindergarten and third, and there is a fifth grade component that actually is being built up this year. But as Gina mentioned, we're hoping that maybe we're just not even seeing some of these things because they're not happening, but we don't know. I mean, prevention is one of those things it's so hard to track, and we might have a glimmer of a window if we can get the funding to start tracking the ones that actually come through the doors of our intervention team. But even then, we're going to be doing dotted lines at some point, like, what school did you go to? Even if it's using the language that's part of our curriculum, we'll track that. But it's one of those things we can only hope that it is making the difference we always intended it would make. Good question, Kim.
That's amazing. Thank you.
So I actually have a couple of questions. One that's typically not my area, but I read your application and I had it jogged some questions for me, and one that is my area of what I evaluate. So typically the board evaluates the program level, the outcomes, and all that, all of those areas. I typically tend to stay on the agency level, looking at your finances, looking at your board, your strategic goals, etc. So first question, I'll stay at the agency level. We talked about this actually a couple of years ago, when we went and visited the site visit, and I just wanted to, I read your agency budget narrative and about the gap and about the work that's being done to address that gap. What is in your mind, what's the prognosis, I guess, because a lot of it is loss of federal funding, right? There's been some changes at the federal level. Any thoughts on that future and what the agency is doing to respond to that?
Yeah, a couple things. Just to provide information for others that might not know, Victims of Crime Act funding is in jeopardy. And for us in 2025, that's a cut of $128,000 starting January 1st for that calendar year. And so we are just changing and growing and trying new things and doing all the stuff. So we've got a plan. The current fiscal year we're in, our year ends at the end of March. We are ahead of budget and we're doing great. So we're finding we're doing okay right now. But I'm super concerned, right? So we have to pull every piece together. We know we have to change how we do things to address this, and so we're working on new strategies. A big part of that is the City of Longmont. 42% of our clients come from the City of Longmont, and we, as you know, this has been an ongoing issue, have really struggled to gain foothold in the community of Longmont from the support base. And so, but in 2 years, we've made great progress. Alberto knows this, that we have struggled over the years to attract board members from the City of Longmont. I personally have asked 8 people in the city, 8 prominent City of Longmont folks to join our board this last year. And although every one of them is a supporter and loves Blue Sky Bridge, it just hasn't been a good time for them. But the good news is we have started an associate board, which is slightly less commitment, but still the passion. These people that love Blue Sky Bridge are jumping to be a part of this group, which is really all about building community. A big part of that is about building community in Longmont. And because we know there's an opportunity for support from the residents of Longmont as well. And we don't have support from the residents of Longmont really at all. I mean, there's a handful, of course, but and we have 2 Longmont residents on our associate board, which is promising and exciting, and they are so excited yeah, so that is really great. 2 Longmont residents plus a Longmont detective are on that group. So all good things. And we've really been working more, like we were at Unity. We've just been doing a lot more. I think the City of Longmont is going to be a huge part of our strategy going forward in terms of building more community support. There's a lot more strategies there. I don't know if you want more details.
No, it's fine. No, because I want to go on to my next question. But yeah, thank you for answering. I may, My next question is, like, again, typically not where I live as far as evaluation is concerned, but I found it interesting. In your outcome around, let me look at it. I got it right here. It's really an outcome that's not on, it's more of, I found it interesting because it's more about the members of your multidisciplinary team rather than the clients. And I found that interesting. So let me make sure I got this right. So basically it's the activity around conducting forensic interviews, right? And so it says 90% of MDT member survey respondents will agree that clients served through this benefit from the collaborative approach. Why is it? I guess I'm wondering why an outcome about the team and not the clients.
You want that one, Gina, or you want me to give a stab?
I think we both could do that. I
Okay.
mean, it's critical. Let me just start at the top level, and then I'll let Lisa dive in. It is critically important. I mean, our clients are, yes, the families that come to Blue Sky Bridge, and we do survey them, and that's a huge part of what we do, right? So we do get their feedback as well, which is incredibly high. The percentages of positive responses are incredibly high. But it's critically important that our MDT members, that the detectives and caseworkers and district attorneys that work with us see the benefit of working with us, that they are compelled to bring every possible case that should come to Blue Sky Bridge to Blue Sky Bridge. It's part of our agreements with them. Every chief and every department we work with signs an agreement that they will bring those cases to us, but they have to love us. They have to believe that what we're doing is right. So that is really important. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say that, just to back up, and a lot of this is reiterating what you probably already know, is the purpose of Blue Sky Bridge operating as a child advocacy center is to be child focused and to make it as easy on the child victim as possible. And so having our MDT members say that it was an efficient process, it was good for the victim, it helped them in their investigation, and it only required the victim, in most cases, to only have to tell their story once, as opposed to having, prior to Blue Sky Bridge, having to tell the case of their abuse multiple times, which often led to unintentional harm, more unintentional harm to the victim. So the role of the MDT it's critical to what we're doing, and they are there during the interview and have a chance to get the information they need to move the investigation forward. Whereas Blue Sky Bridge is holding not only the care of the investigation, they're also holding the care of the child and their family, and through our victim advocacy services, making sure they've got the counseling, the support, the knowledge of what's going to happen to them. And then also there's the therapeutic path that they can follow.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering about that. Any other questions from the board? All right, if not, we don't need to use our entire 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop the timer. And I'm going to give you all your 5 minutes. And again, you don't have to use it all, but I'll give it to you starting now.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to share. The biggest stuff was that evidence connection between prevention and intervention. So important. I want to make sure you heard that. But Lisa doesn't even know this yet. We are so excited. We are under contract on a building in Longmont to have permanent space in Longmont as of last night.
Well, okay. Well, now the whole city of Longmont will know, because this is going to be on our City of Longmont YouTube page.
Yay! So it's right around the corner from the PD, 230 Emory. We're so excited. We received some congressionally directed spending last year to funding to be able to do this, as well as some Worthy Cause funding. So if you're watching Worthy Cause, thank you. So we're very excited to have permanent space in Longmont. It will mostly be for therapy, but also for some community things and for some meetings, and just much easier for families and our partners. And we're super excited. Finally, one more thing. I don't know if you've heard this, but I will be leaving my position in January, and I wanted Oh, thank you for that sad face. But um, I just wanted to let you know how grateful I've been for your support over all these years. And I'm going to miss every bit of my job. I have loved every moment of working at Blue Sky Bridge. It just was the right time for everybody. Blue Sky Bridge is strong and solid and amazing. And we're working right now to find an amazing new executive director who can take this place even further to amazing new places. So I just wanted you to know that. But thank you so much for your support. This will be my last one of these after 12 of them. But yeah, I wanted to make sure you'd heard that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, wishing you best wherever, whatever's next.
I don't know.
Lisa, anything you want to share?
I mean, I'll echo Gina in saying we greatly appreciate this opportunity. As you've pointed out, Alberto, funding is tight. You know, we're projecting that we'll be serving about 127 Longmont children and their families. Of course, the number goes up as you add the family members and secondary victims. And so funding is key. It just to have really high, top-notch qualified forensic interviewers and family advocates and therapists available and literally right there in the building. It takes a lot of resources. So anything you can do to help us in that area, we greatly appreciate.
Actually, and you just reminded me of a question, and you've already you kind of answered it, but I have Christina, my director, has been asking this to every agency, just because you are so right about funding being key, and I think I think you answered it, the challenges, but her question has been to everybody about, given the reality, our economic realities that we have as a city and you all have as a nonprofit, what would be the impact if your application was either funded partially or not funded at all? And I think you've already answered that question about how key it is and what the need is. But if you want to add anything more for Christina's sake, she's going to see this video later.
Hi, Christina. I don't like your question. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing.
I love it with the big smile too.
Can you tell I'm a short timer? No, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, we have to piece together all the little pieces and the big pieces, and this piece is key. I mean, we provide an incredible service for the city of Longmont to keep Longmont safe, and just the forensic interviews is a small piece of what we do for the city of Longmont, and we are in schools throughout St. Vrain Valley and private schools, and we're doing so much. I mean, the funding we receive is just this compared to what we're offering. So I would really, really, really beg that funding is not cut, because it just means we're going to have to scramble that much more. So please.
Can I add to that, Gina?
Yes.
Again, I'm going to add in just to give some frame of reference, Christina, to serve one City of Longmont child victim just through the intervention arm. That's not the therapy arm or the prevention education arm. Costs about $2,500, and the current funding is just about $100 per Longmont child.
All right, thank you so much. Sorry that I left that heavy question for the end, but you reminded me of that. So I think I had to ask, because Christina's been asking that of every agency, just because we are like everybody else, in a tight financial situation. So
yes,
all right.
I appreciate the hard problem you have of allocating limited funds. So I hope I'm teasing. But yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate the challenge you have as well. I just wish there was magically enough money to do everything we all need to do. So
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your Saturday.
Kim, so good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Nice
It was
to meet
really
you.
interesting.
Thank
Thanks.
Nice to meet you, Catherine. Bye.
Bye.
So there's 4 people in the waiting room. I don't know if they're all for CASA. I'm gonna let them in and we're gonna find out. And we may ask somebody to leave if they're not, but there's 4 people in the lobby. Let them in. Hopefully they're all for CASA.
Hi, folks.
Good morning. Just want to make sure, I think you all, this is all for CASA, right? Is it anything
Mhm.
not CASA? Okay, good. I kind of remember you all, but I just wanted to make sure because typically we don't have 4 people waiting in the lobby. So, all right. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know it's a Saturday morning. We all got stuff going on. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna have a 15-minute Q&A between us, the board and staff, and you. And then we're gonna have a 5-minute chance for you all to share whatever you want to share. Now, what I do gotta let you know is that this is a public hearing. It's been posted publicly, and so it is being recorded and will be on our City of Longmont YouTube page in the near future. Unfortunately, my supervisor Christina was feeling ill, so she can't be here today. But I will try and work us this process. So, why don't we start with you all quickly introducing yourselves, and then we will introduce ourselves, and then we will get into the Q&A.
Sure. Margaret, you want to start? Okay. My name is McKenna Wood. I am the development manager for Voices for Children. I've been there since February of 23.
And I am Jessica Schultz. I get to be the development officer with Voices for Children, oversee all the fundraising, marketing, communications, have been on the team since June of last year.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Casson. I'm the program officer here at VFC. I've been with the organization for about 4 years now, and my role is to oversee our program staff and all of our volunteers.
Good morning. Thanks for this opportunity. Margaret Backrack, I'm the CEO. I have been with the organization about 20 months, but this is my 3rd CASA program. I truly believe it's the best CASA support. So thank you again for this time.
All right, thank you. Board.
Hi, my name's Kim Stringa. This is my 2nd term on the board, and it's wonderful to meet you all this morning. Thanks for being here.
Hi, and I'm Cassie Lau, and this is my first term on the board, and I'll echo Kim. It's great to hear from you.
And I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate this process. So we're going to start the 15 minutes. We may not use all of it, and that's okay. Again, this is a time for the board to get their questions answered about the application or anything else they want to know about the organization. And then we'll make sure you have 5 minutes to share whatever you have to say at the end. Again, you don't have to use it all, but it's your 5 minutes, and we want to honor that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the timer. Board, if you have any questions. No questions? Oh, great. Then I will start. I do have some questions. I actually going to start with it's a pretty heavy question that we've been asking everyone. Actually, my supervisor has been asking everybody just because of where we are. And then I'll have my own questions that I will ask afterwards. So the question that she's been asking every single agency, we've done a whole bunch of these, is this: given the economic realities, what would be the impact to services in Longmont, residents of Longmont, if your application was either partially funded or not funded at all?
McKenna, do you want me or you want to start and I'll just piggyback?
Yeah, whatever you prefer. Do you want to start and then I can jump in?
So I think what's really important is it would definitely impact the work. We also know that there's, the potential of VOCA, which can be reduced by 40 to 60% in the coming years. And, that's not quite 1/3 of our budget. So there's that would be a threat to our organization. As well as the fundraising landscape is changing. And in Boulder County, what's really interesting is we rate very highly nationally on those that choose to volunteer. We're in the top. I had to let someone in the lobby, maybe. We're in the top.
Oh.
The top tier of volunteering nationally. But in terms of Boulder County, it's surprising that we are really at the below in terms of charitable giving. And the other part that's really important for you all to know is the lion's share of children that we serve are in Longmont. So for us not receiving the funding or partial funding could be devastating to the work that we do.
Yeah. Just to add on, we saw a 26% growth in the number of children we served from last year to this year, and that trend does look like it's going to continue to grow in the number of children that require our services. And so not receiving the funding would impact, the way that we're able to respond to this growth, and, our advocate supervisors, I think, oversee an average of 30 cases per individual, which is a pretty significant workload. And those individuals, require support. And we want to continue to have, a competitive, enticing workplace for individuals who are willing to do that emotionally heavy and impactful work. So yeah, we would definitely, need to adapt and adjust pretty significantly with the loss of this funding. And then, like Margaret said, we're looking at losing our some of our federal funding as well. And that's just for all causes across the state. So yeah.
So let me get a clarification. Then I have another question that another board member asked every agency while they were on the board or on these hearings. But so which federal act funds you?
Yeah, so VOCA, it's Victims of Crime Act. And then we did
Okay.
also lose a little bit of VAIL funding. And VAIL stands for, oh gosh, somebody jump in and save me, guys. Acronyms at 9 in the morning.
I totally get federal acronyms. I used to be funded by a federal program as well. But just okay, so because we just talked to Blue Sky Bridge, and I think they get funded by VOCA as well. And they talked about losing some funding from VOCA as well. So here's a question that another board member has asked while they've been doing this interview that I hadn't thought about, but I thought it's an interesting question because we met earlier this year and talked about evaluation and outcomes, and his question kind of piggybacks on this earlier discussion this year. Do you have an example of how you, and this is for Jenny more anybody, do you have an example how you have adapted or changed how you deliver services based on your evaluation and outcomes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say what we are noticing in addition to a slight increase in kids served is the cases seem to be getting more egregious and complex. They're lasting longer too in the court system because these families just need so much support. So that's a trend that we've been seeing. And the way that we've been adapting is just working a lot more closely with our volunteers to make sure that they feel supported in this work as these cases are getting more complex. And it's very case specific. So I could list off a bunch of examples, but it really does depend on the case and kind of what that volunteer is needing. And it's so, excuse me, specific to that volunteer and that child. And what our advocate supervisors are doing is spending more time with that volunteer to make sure that they are feeling supported and able to advocate for the child and that child's best interests. A lot of that is done through reports to the court, but also through collaborating with professionals. And we have done a lot of work over the past year or so to mend some of the fences with the department and court professionals and just nurture those relationships so that we have a good working partnership with those folks. So those are a couple of ways that we have adapted just kind of across the board to be able to serve these families a little bit better, given that the dynamics within these families are just trending in more complex ways, it seems, for these kids.
Thank you. Can you talk to me a little bit sorry, Cass, I didn't see your hand up. You go ahead.
I just put it up. Sorry. So yeah, I guess I'm thinking, with the lack of funding resources, do you have to actually turn some children away or do you just spend less time with each? I mean, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so
You
I
know,
will
it's
jump
really, oh, sorry, McKenna.
I will just say we, since 2020, have an understanding and an agreement with the 20th Judicial Court that 100% of children who require CASA will receive one. In the past, we did have a bit of a wait list for children who are waiting to be appointed at CASA. You know, as recruitment numbers kind of wax and wane, but we've done an excellent job, and I say we, but that's Jenny and the program team, have done an excellent job of shoring up our numbers of CASAs. But to answer that first part, we, you know, are extremely dedicated to ensuring that first and foremost children are served.
Thank you.
Yeah, Margaret.
And I'll just piggyback that quickly. The magistrate who's been overseeing the dependency and neglect court for more than 20 years, she has said that most recently she has never seen so many egregious cases. So it piggybacks again on what Jenny said, that, you know, the cases are far more complicated and children are able to stay in the home if it's low to moderate risk. So that's what we're seeing different is, you know, the children that we're serving are truly the most complicated cases, but our advocate supervisors do an amazing job supervising the volunteers. And as Jenny said, you know, every case is different, but these cases are difficult at best. So it takes a really special certain volunteer who's willing, one barrier at a time, right? That has the time that can really participate. So thank you for asking the question.
And then, oh, sorry. To kind of go off the question of like the lack of, or, you know, a decrease in funding and the impacts there, I think directly what we would see, you know, most immediately is kind of that um, difficulty, you know, expanding or moving with our program. So like, for example, we were recently fortunate enough to send 2 staff members, Jenny was one of them, to a trust-based relational intervention training. So that's a trauma-informed training to help address, you know, children who have experienced severe trauma in their youth, right? And so that was a something that required a chunk of finances. However, because child welfare, you know, is such a changing landscape, and we are, you know, very committed to changing with it and equipping our staff and our volunteers with these tools, you know, lack of funding definitely makes that more difficult.
Thank you. Cassie, do you have any more questions?
No, thank you very much.
So I just have one more question that's based on your outcomes. Again, typically I don't evaluate outcomes. I mean, until we get to the agreement process of if you do get funded, then we will have multiple conversations on outcomes. But I do have a question right now. When I look at your outcomes, they're very much heavily focused on at least it feels like the first 2 or 3 or first 2 are focused on volunteer recruitment, and just wanted to explore why focusing on volunteer recruitment as an outcome is where where you think you should be.
Yeah, so I can address that. And Eliberto, you were so patient with me last year and helping me to understand, you know, what specifically y'all were looking for in outcomes. And one of the things that I took away was what we can directly control. And so while, you know, it is true that CASA volunteers show an increase in placement for children, right? Children who have a CASA are more likely to find safe and permanent placement. They're more likely to do better in school. They're more like half as likely to re-enter the foster system. You know, we have these studies that do demonstrate the positive impact of CASAs. From my perspective in writing the grant, I thought we would come back to, while that is a proven outcome of our CASAs, it's not something that we can directly control. And so, and, you know, and we also talked about like our well-being assessments, right? We do see, we are working on getting that baseline of right where our children are when they enter this into our program, and then demonstrating impact through our well-being assessments of, you know, we see 80% of children that we survey are happy with their current placement. However, right, we need that baseline data. So we are working on adapting our data for that. And so the decision to focus on cost of recruitment was kind of made for that, something that we can control, and then hopefully being able to demonstrate, because we have these costs, right, we are able to provide these impacts and have this impact on children in Boulder County.
Alberto, I'll expand on that just a little because it's such a great question. And we know that how valuable it is to funders to be able to prove, right, the critical work that we do. So there are 18 programs in Colorado, right? There's 49 states that participate, 950 programs, but in Colorado, there are 18 of us. And at that level, we meet monthly with all of the other CEOs, EDs, and we're talking about instituting a survey really around pre-post. So right when the case opens with our volunteer and upon closing, and really trying to figure out some measurement tools so we do understand how critical it is to measure. And right now, I think all of us are doing the best we can in terms of national and what they drive and our well-being assessments. But please know, we know we can always do better, and we're trying to improve as well. So great question.
Thank you. So that was my last question. Board, do you have any other questions? Okay, then I will stop our timer and give you your 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious and excited to learn about what you guys are seeing in terms of needs from the city of Longmont. We'd love to continue building our relationship with Longmont. As Margaret mentioned, most of our kids are located in Longmont. And while we do have, significant outreach, and we did hire this year an outreach manager, I think there's so many opportunities to become involved. So I'm just kind of curious about where you guys see, the trends and the needs of Longmont's children's moving.
Well, I mean, I think generally speaking, the biggest need that we continue to see in Longmont is affordable housing. It's a lack of affordable housing, which causes all sorts of stresses for families. We are seeing an increase in family homelessness, which may lead to some of your clients, right? The fact that families are struggling to find a place to live may bring about neglect cases and et cetera. Mental health issues continue to be. There's a huge rise in homelessness, both on the family and individual level, is a huge issue. I think food insecurity is growing as well. Just because we all know the prices of food in the grocery stores are still going. So yeah, some very basic needs are just because of the economy, because of inflation, are expounding and they're growing. I don't know, Board, if you want to add anything else to that, about like the presentations we've heard from our housing folks. Anything else?
Just a sense of general increase in need of services across the board is basically the message I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I think the other piece too on the nonprofit, so we've been having these nonprofit engagement meetings, and from that, Cassie's attended one of those. Just the challenge to keep staff is challenging because rates are going up. Just overall a general unease about where our economic situation is, both from our nonprofits, from the city's perspective, and just individual residents struggling, families struggling to, and of course, I'm not sure if you were part of the county funding, but the county had to reduce, quite a bit of funding for many of its obligations because of all sorts of different reasons. So yeah, I think we're all headed toward a little scary time, yeah.
For sure.
So I know our time is so limited. So with all that being said, right, all the stresses that are happening, across the board with all the things that you mentioned, Alberto, in terms of just housing and mental health and food insecurity, it's just the cost of living. And so on a typical family, those stresses are so great. So then you take those stresses that are expanded, during the pandemic and following the pandemic, that what's happening with those stresses is it's really being taken out on the children that we serve, right? So all of it just compounds the difficulty of everyone's life, but unfortunately to the children, right? No fault of their own, they're experiencing some really severe trauma. So again, so supporting all these causes that truly need the support, right? It just seems like, there's so many great, wonderful causes, especially in Boulder County, right? There's so many nonprofits and so many deserving causes that all need support. And so for us, Voices for Children, CASA Boulder County, children are our future. And we truly feel like having a very stable adult in a child's life who, quite frankly, their world has been turned upside down, truly provides stability through this court case, right? And, it could be a year and a half, it could be longer, but it's that relationship that is looking at the child's well-being and providing a court report to the magistrate to help determine safe permanent placement. So truly we are eliminating some of the traumas that come along with what these kiddos have been through. So the funding is vital and critical to our future generation.
So our time is about up. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We will have our in November, we will have our deliberation. We have one more, after we have one more set of hearings, and we will let you know as soon as we get done through that deliberation meeting. Okay?
Thank you all
All right.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
have a great Saturday, rest of your Saturday.
Thanks for your time, really. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, and Bruce is we are doing great on time. We're only a minute behind, so Bruce is in the lobby and I'm gonna let him in. Morning, Bruce.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Bruce, are we waiting for anybody else or is it just gonna be you today?
It's just gonna be me today.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. Well, again, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Quick caveat, tell everybody, because this is a public hearing, it is being recorded and will be on our City of Longmont YouTube page in the near future. What we're going to do is we're going to have about a 15-minute Q&A session with you from our board and staff, and then we'll give you 5 minutes. We may not use all of our 15 minutes, and that's okay. But we'll make sure you have your 5 minutes at the end to share whatever you want to share about your application and or organization. We're going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and then the board and I will introduce ourselves, and then we will get going with the 15-minute timer.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Bruce Weiner. I'm the founder and executive director of Bridge to Justice. We're a nonprofit law firm based in Boulder, and we've been in existence since 2013.
Awesome. Board, who wants to go first?
I can go. My name's Kim Strenga. This is my second term on the board with the City of Longmont, and thanks for being here this morning. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Hi, and I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm also a board member, and it's nice to meet you.
Awesome. And I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I'll be facilitating this process. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. Board, any questions from you about Bridge to Justice application? Kim doesn't have any. Cassie, go ahead.
So I guess sort of a general question is, how much time can you devote to prevention versus actually dealing with cases? Because obviously, right, prevention is more important, but if you have a trauma, you have to deal with it. So is there a problem? I mean, are you constrained with your funding, et cetera, to do that?
When you say prevention, do you mean preventing domestic violence or other issues that we deal with?
Mainly domestic violence.
Yeah. So, clients come to us at various stages of litigation. Sometimes clients come to us and no case has been filed. And so they come to us and ask for our advice. Should they file a case? And our advice obviously is dictated by the facts of their case. But a lot of clients come to us after a case has been filed in cases involving protection orders. So that's kind of the primary context in which we're assisting victims of domestic violence, typically a case has already been filed. And just given how protection orders, the posture of those cases, everything happens very quickly. So a temporary protection order occurs, and then by law, the permanent protection order hearing must occur within 14 days. And so it's in that 14-day period when most clients are seeking legal assistance. And so everything has to occur pretty quickly. But, you know, for me, at least personally, I take a lot of pride in advising clients not to file something if I don't think that there's merit. Excuse me. And that could save a lot of clients a lot of money in not going down the road of litigation. But to answer your question, we're kind of, we have to meet the client where they're at. So if there's litigation, then prevention, that ship has already passed.
So while I have local paper had an article, I think yesterday, that like there was a big spike during the pandemic and things are, domestic violence is going down. Do you see that, or?
Well, during the pandemic, we certainly saw a spike, an increase in domestic violence. My take on that is I don't think there's been a reduction. Maybe it's just people are not reporting it as often and seeking protection orders or, seeking parenting time orders in custody cases. And obviously we deal a lot in family law cases.
Mm-hmm.
So from our vantage point, we're not really seeing a reduction in the number of filings for protection orders or the incidence of domestic violence in custody cases.
No positive news for me. Thank you very much.
At least from our vantage point. And again, we're dealing with a lot of very difficult cases. So one thing that we specialize in are post-decree family law cases, and these tend to be ongoing high conflict cases almost by definition, because it means that the parties cannot resolve the issue on their own. And so by the time they come to us, it's typically been an ongoing high conflict situation already. So again, it's just the nature of the cases and the clients that we're assisting with.
Thank you.
So I got several questions, but first, Bruce, I want to give you kudos, because I looked at your program outcomes, and I think for our legal folks, it's always been a little bit challenging to get down, because we've talked about this before, cases can be, like you said, they're ongoing, and they can be ongoing even after they interact with you. But I really appreciate that you found a way to look at all the different things and provide outcomes that are quantitative, that we can look at. Oh, okay, so 90% of folks are learning this, they're getting this help. So I want to give you kudos for that, because I know we've had many conversations over the years. So that's great. So I want to say that. Now, let me start with the question that my supervisor, Christina Pacheco, our new Human Services Director, has been asking everybody. So this is a question that we've asked every agency so far, because it's just a reality. So her question is, given the economic realities faced by the city and nonprofits, what would be the impact to services in Longmont or Longmont residents if your application was either partially funded or not funded at all?
So one of the unique aspects of our organization is that we're partially a fee-for-service. So it's a quasi fee-for-service business model. We do charge a reduced hourly rate for eligible clients based on their income and assets. And so we're not completely dependent on grants and donations to support operations. And I think that makes us very unique, especially among legal providers. So if funding were reduced or eliminated entirely, relative to our overall budget, the funding that we receive from the City of Longmont is not that significant. So it wouldn't have a significant impact on our organization. We probably would need to generate additional revenue, just from billing clients. And obviously that could have an impact on clients. We would probably also try to look for alternate sources of grant revenue, donations, but it wouldn't have a significant impact on operations.
Thank you. We're just asking that of everybody because, just overall economic outlooks is tight for 2025. So speaking of that, one of my questions is that I review the agency level piece of the application. Not that I don't look, like I did look at your outcomes, I do read them. I typically don't ask about them because that's really the board's purview. But I just wanted to give you kudos for that. I've seen the outcomes grow throughout the year and throughout the years, and I appreciate that. But what I do look at is the agency level. And speaking about funding, talk to me about what strategic goals the board is working on. You're thinking about, when I look at your budget for 2025, vast majority comes from government, whether it be local, state, whatever. It's very dependent on localized government funding, and of course your program fees as well. But what are the ideas of trying to raise that community support, that community awareness? I think you guys do really good work in the community. But when I see the donations and individual contributors and all that stuff, I wonder, what are we thinking about? What are you all thinking about increasing that community awareness and support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would agree. I think we've done a great job in terms of raising community awareness at the kind of local city and county level. So our government sources of funding are pretty stable. So I think what you're referencing, Alberto, is our eviction defense funding, which has steadily increased from the city of Boulder and Boulder County, as well as the state of Colorado. Last year, we received a 2-year grant from the state of Colorado Attorney General's office to assist with our domestic violence prevention work. So I think in terms of local government funding, it's very stable for us, and we've noticed a fairly steady increase despite cutbacks in local funding. I think that's just a function of our increased presence in the community. I think for us, really what the board is committed to is increasing private donations. And so that's been a challenge for us over the years. We've had some fairly modest fundraisers over the years. That hasn't been a significant source of revenue for us. We're probably going to have a quasi fundraiser / webinar training at the end of this year that we're going to kind of center around Colorado Gives Day. And that's going to be based on what's called lethality assessments, which has been a big focus of the state in recent years. So it's an ongoing challenge for us. Our board, we don't have a lot of nonprofit fundraising expertise, I would say. We're committed to it, but it's just something that doesn't come as easily for our board. We're a very small board. We're a working board. So we really want to stay focused on developing relationships rather than just planning, a big fundraising gala,
Right.
which I think has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit since COVID. And it's not really consistent with our mission, how we want to use our resources. So, there are a lot of people in the community who I think are drawn to our work. Certainly a lot of retired lawyers, judges, even, lay people who are committed to access to justice. It's a huge issue in the community, in the state, nationwide as well. So that's really, I think, kind of the next frontier for our organization is increasing private giving among private donors, as well as possibly local law firms, local businesses as well.
Thank you. So that's any other questions from the board? All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and stop our timer, Bruce, and I'm going to give you your time now to share whatever you want to share about the application or trends that you're seeing in your organization. This is a great time to do that.
Sure. So I would say the big change in the organization since last year is we hired 2 new, what we call legal fellows, so 2 fairly new attorneys for a 2-year term. And that's been funded by the state of Colorado Attorney General's office. And that's the first time that we've received funding from the state to support our family law eviction defense work. And that's been great for us. So we're taking very high conflict, complex post-decree family law cases involving domestic violence. And so clients who qualify for that program are not paying a fee. And so we've saved just, in the 9-10 months that we've been implementing this grant, we've saved probably in total, a couple $100,000 in attorney's fees to eligible clients who are not charging. I would say even with that grant, it's still not fully supporting our family law project, which tends to constitute the bulk of the work that we're doing. And we're seeing more and more clients in need. We're getting a greater demand for our post-decree cases, which I touched on earlier. And again, these are the cases that tend to consume a disproportionate amount of resources and time. And I would note this is why legal aid in Boulder does not take post-decree cases. So a common question we get is, how are we different than legal aid? And the primary way that we're different is that we take post-decree family law cases. So legal aid, who I think you're meeting with right after me, even if the client is indigent, if it's a post-decree case, and by post-decree I mean modification or enforcement of a divorce decree or a child custody order, legal aid doesn't assist with those cases. So we're doing the best we can with our business model, charging our reduced hourly rates. We're charging about 1/3 to 1/2 of the market hourly rates, but it still adds up. And we can't predict how long we're going to be on the case, how much time or effort will be involved. That's completely dictated by the facts of the case. So I would just say to the committee, we're asking for a little bit more money than we asked for last year. I think we're asking for $7,500, and I believe we received, $4,500 this year. And that's just a reflection of the increased caseload that we're seeing from City of Longmont residents, primarily in those post-decree cases.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. Thank you for all that you do. So just to give you kind of a quick rundown of what's going to happen, we have one more of these hearings, and then our deliberation meeting is November 14th. And right after that, I will send you an email with whatever the board decides. And then it has to be taken to City Council for them to approve. Technically, they can change it. They typically don't. They trust the board to do the work, but they could. I always put that caveat. The council could change things. And then we'll, of course, if you are funded, we'll start the agreement process after that.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate the support.
All right. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, thank you for what
Likewise.
you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Mhm.
All right. So we
Alberto,
cut up. Yeah.
I need to use the restroom just so you know I'm off.
Perfect time for break because the next group isn't here and we got 3 minutes before they're supposed to show up. So we are perfect timing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Brett is in the waiting room. I'll go ahead and let her in. We're down to our last three agencies, which is good. We're almost there. Let's see. What else? I guess four agencies, including Brett. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and let Brett come on in. Good morning. Can you hear
Good
us?
morning. Apologies, I logged on a little earlier
No
this
worries.
morning.
It happens. It happens. All right. Well, first of all, welcome. I'm gonna start with a little bit of just setting the groundwork here. Are you expecting anybody else?
I believe Aliciana Medina was going to join us.
Okay, she is here. I will let her in.
Perfect.
All right. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna set the groundwork and then we can get going here. So first of all, thank you for being here. Appreciate your
Absolutely.
presence this
Good
morning.
morning.
What we're gonna do here in a second is we're gonna have a 15-minute Q&A with the board and staff and you. We may not use all of our 50 minutes, but then we're gonna make sure you have 5 minutes at the end to share what you need to share. As you know, this is a public hearing and it is being recorded and will be on the City of Longmont's YouTube page for the community to see if they wish. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let you and Aliciana introduce yourselves, then the board and I will introduce ourselves, and then we'll start our 50 minutes.
Absolutely. Hi, I am Brett Landis, she, her, hers pronouns. I have been the managing attorney for the Colorado Legal Services Boulder office since 2016. And I am proud to say that we serve our community by providing civil legal services to low income and senior members of our community free of charge.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Aliciana. I am the pro bono coordinator. I work closely with Britt Landis at the Boulder office for Colorado Legal Services.
All right. Board.
I'm Kim Strenga. This is my second term on the board, and it's nice to meet you both. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm also on the board. It's my first term, and I'm interested to hear your story. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm Liberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate this funding process. I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. Board, do you have any questions for Colorado Legal Services?
I guess I'm curious, and this might already be in the application if we've had so many, it's hard to keep track.
Okay.
But I'm wondering, where do you see the most need? What type of legal services are most in demand, and has that trend changed in recent history?
Yeah, absolutely. So our four core areas where we provide services are family law, housing, focusing primarily on tenants' rights, consumer issues, and public benefits. Family law traditionally has been the largest sector of need. People seeking protection orders, divorce, custody. More than half of those family law cases do involve working with survivors of domestic violence, stalking, dating violence, sexual assault, or elder abuse. Within that section, I have certainly been seeing an increase in seniors who have experienced abuse, needing help with a family law issue, whether it's a protection order or a divorce case. I think I've been seeing more seniors seeking divorce due to abuse. That may be an after effect of the pandemic and people living in isolation, and that population in particular being more isolated. We have also, I think it's probably no surprise that our communities are are seeing increased housing costs. We've been seeing an increase in housing related services, whether that's eviction defense, but we've also been seeing, I think, some conditions cases where the Colorado warranty of habitability has been violated, where a rental property is no longer safe for the people who live there to live there. So we've been seeing an increase in some of those cases as well. We've been seeing a little bit of an increase in consumer cases. We may see more as we get further and further away from 2020. A number of people, I think, really strained their finances in the past couple of years, and a lot of times it takes a while for those things to catch up. So people who went into credit card debt to pay basic bills after a job separation, I think, have been struggling with some of those issues.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cassie, do you have a question?
Yeah, please. So, I mean, I think the work you're doing is wonderful. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
really needed. We talk about equality for all, and there isn't but like my question is, in your statistic keeping, could you like say that because of your intervention, like a certain amount of people didn't get evicted and things like that to make your case stronger?
Yes. Probably not right off the top of my head. But certainly we have some of that data available in our system. It takes a little while to pull those numbers. But certainly our colleagues, so we are a statewide organization, and our colleagues across the state, we have the mechanisms to keep track of that information. The outcomes for this grant have never specifically requested that, so I don't have that at the tip of my fingers today. But our others of our colleagues receive assistance through the Eviction Legal Defense Fund. And so we track all of that information to see, case outcomes in housing cases, to see, how many cases resulted in an agreement to move, an agreement to remain in the housing, and with a payment plan to catch up on non-payment of rent. Yeah, we have a number of different outcomes that we can track and seek data for out of our system.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So Brett, I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask. One is a question that's not my question. It's a question that my supervisor has been asking every agency, because we just wanted to have it on the record, because it's given the economic realities that we're all facing, what would be the impact to residents, to services for Longmont residents if your application was either partially funded or not funded at all?
It would be significant. Again, we are the probably the most longstanding organization providing civil legal aid to our community, and that is countywide. But historically, the plurality, the largest group of people we serve live in Longmont, because that is the highest population of people who are low income in Boulder County. We work very closely with Safe Shelter of the St. Vrain, which is the domestic violence shelter. We receive a lot of referrals and a lot of cases from that organization of people who are really in some of the hardest situations in our community. Families, both seniors facing elder abuse and families with young children seeking safety. Going into court in a family law situation without an attorney is probably one of the most terrifying experiences a person can have. And without our support, those people would be going in on their own, or maybe not going in at all and staying in unsafe situations. Our housing advocacy, we work again on a broad range of housing issues, but eviction defense is really critical to keeping people housed. On top of that, I didn't mention it specifically earlier, but we do a lot of work on subsidized housing issues. where people are only able to stay housed because they receive housing support through the public housing authorities. In Longmont, it's the Longmont Housing Authority. There are so many, the rules around subsidized housing are unbelievably complicated. I always tell people it is so much more work and so much harder to be poor in our society than to not need these resources. And so it is so common that, you know, not necessarily through ill intent, but mistakes happen on subsidized housing issues. And the effects of losing a housing voucher or losing your subsidized housing is really outrageous and critical. And we have an attorney whose work is focused on housing, consumer, and public benefits issues. And she has really dove into subsidized housing with a passion. And that really helps people remain housed. You would see an increase in housing loss, and housing assistance loss leads directly to housing loss. Additionally, with some of our public benefits work, we are working with people who really are relying on federal benefits and subsistence level incomes, whether that's through Social Security, adult financial assistance, Medicaid, Medicare. Seeing people lose these benefits really is the most destabilizing thing for people who are already barely making ends meet. And so supporting those needs really is critical and important to the long-term health and vitality of our community as a whole.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Well, thank you so much for that part. I'm going to transfer the time and give you your 5 minutes at this point. So again, we don't have to use all our 15. You don't have to use all your 5, but you got them.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, you know, we have, as an organization, had a lot of change in the past couple of years. We have been so lucky to have continued to receive the support from the Longmont community, and it really does make a big difference. Personally, this is going to be my last time appearing at this hearing. I'm actually leaving the organization to work for the Colorado Access to Justice Commission, but I will say I am so proud that I am leaving our office in the hands of some really wonderful professionals. Aliciana joined us and has been just wonderful as our pro bono coordinator, and has done great work on responding to these grants, responding to requests for information. But I'm also leaving our office in the hands of 2 really dedicated staff attorneys, both of whom have some significant experience in their areas, and both of whom speak Spanish and can provide better services to our clients. We have developed over the years a really great team of contract and private attorneys that we work in partnership with to take work on pro bono and to really support this community. So it has been an absolute honor to get to work with our community partners, to get to work with our local funders and support the needs of this community. And I am so confident that work will continue without me personally being here. So
Well, we're going to miss you. It's been great working with you over the last few years, and yeah, good luck on the next great adventure.
Likewise. And again, I will be working on some statewide issues, so we may run in the same circles at some point.
Cool. Aliciana, anything else you want to add?
No, not just sad that Brett is going, but confident that I'll be able to produce numbers or reports. Like Brett said, I do the applications, so any questions moving forward, yeah, just let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here this morning. Just, you know, Brett, I'm not sure when your last day is, but just kind of a rundown of what happens next. We have one more round of hearings next Wednesday, and then we have our deliberation deliberation meeting on November 14th. And then after that, we'll send out emails about funding awards. So if you leave before then, just make sure that we have the right contact of who to contact.
Yeah, we will make sure. I'm technically, my last day is the 31st, so.
All right. So if you can go on to, because you can do this on Founded, if you can go on Founded and add that extra contact, that's where I typically look for contacts.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
We will
okay.
do so.
Yeah, I'm on the contact, so
Oh,
if
perfect.
I'm on there, it should be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you
Thank
so much, and
you.
thank you to both of our board members for your time this morning.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So Mike Anderson's in the lobby, but he's not next. So I might just let him in and let him know that we're just waiting on the next group, and then I'm just going to acknowledge that we know that he's here. Hey, Mike. Oh, can you hear us, bud? Can you hear us, Mike?
All right, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Hey, so you're a little bit early. I'm just wanted to acknowledge that you're here.
Okay.
I'm gonna put you back in the lobby if I can figure out how to do that. How do I do that? Let me see. But I want to know that we know that you're here.
Okay.
So actually, you know what would be best, Mike, is if you, because I don't want to remove you from the meeting, because I'm not sure if removing you from the meeting would would make it hard for you to come back in. What if you just step out and then come back in and just stay in the lobby? We just want to let you know that we know you're here.
Okay. Yep. I'll just turn my camera off and microphone off and wait to hear back from you.
Okay. All right.
Great.
And I'm gonna let Maria in. She is from our next group already, so she's in the lobby. I'm gonna let her in. And here's Belen too. Perfect. Okay, so here's Belen.
Hi.
Good morning, Belen. Hey, so Mike is in the meeting. He's for the next group, but he's got his mic and his camera off, and we can do our thing. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Is Laurel gonna be here, or is it just you two?
No, just Maria and myself.
Perfect. Okay. That way we can get started early, get you guys out early, and then get Mike in early and get him out early.
Sounds good.
All right. So first of all, thank you for being here. We really appreciate all that you do. Just a quick caveat. This is a public hearing and thus is being recorded and will be on our City of Longmont YouTube page for the whole community to see. What we're going to do here in a second is we're going to give you a chance for you everybody to introduce yourselves, let us know who you are and your role in the organization. And then we're going to let the board introduce themselves. We got two board members here today with us. Then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll have a 15-minute Q&A time. Just so, and we don't have to, the board doesn't have to use that whole Q&A. But we'll also give you 5 minutes at the end for you to share whatever you want to share. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so why don't we start with you all introducing yourselves?
Well, my name is Belen Parga Solis. I'm the co-director, executive director at the moment, and I'm also director of client services. I am a legal accredited representative at the Immigrant Legal Center, and I've been there for 10 years now.
Thank you.
And my name is Maria Gordillo Villa. I am also an accredited representative, and I'm currently the Director of Community Engagement. And I've been with the office for 7 years now.
Awesome. Great. All right. Board, would you like to introduce yourselves?
My name's Kim Strenka. This is my second term on the board, and it's nice to see you here this morning. Thank you.
And I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm a new member of the board, and it's nice to see you also.
All right, and I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager, and I help facilitate this process. Thank you again for being here with us. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. and give the board their 15 minutes of questions, and then we'll give you your 5 minutes. Or do you have any questions for Belen or Maria?
Yeah, I think you definitely allude to it in your application, but I was curious to learn more about how, if you've seen any trends in the need for different services in the last few years, and just the demand, especially coming up to this election, how much that has impacted the work that you do.
Yeah, so I feel like we're always in high demand, just because our goal at the office is always to get a work card or a green card in our community members' hands. So we're always very busy, but the last couple of years, last year, I should say, we have seen a little bit more of asylum consultations. And now with the elections, we definitely are seeing a lot of citizenship applications. And so right now it's between asylum and citizenship, where it's what we're seeing a lot these days. But again, we always stay busy. Just our workflow throughout the year stays pretty much consistent. I have noticed, I mean, like I mentioned before, I've been there 10 years. And every time around elections or holidays, it tends to slow down a bit, but it hasn't this year. So I'm guessing we're going to stay pretty busy throughout the rest of the year. But for sure, asylum and citizenship have been two topics that have come about more in the last couple of months.
Can I add something to that too?
Yeah.
Just adding to it too. So also we've been seeing a lot of our DACA recipients right now applying for what is called an advanced parole travel document, which is very important for a lot of their cases because many of our DACA recipients enter the country at a young age when they were like 6, 7 years old. So they had an unlawful entry, and with this advanced parole document, what it's doing is basically clearing that unlawful entry so they can move forward with the green card process. Back previously around, I would say 4 years ago, many were so terrified to apply for this program. But now, since last year to now, like presently, everyone's doing it. And that's what's helping us also help a lot of them get out of the DACA program. So that's something we've been seeing a lot lately too.
Great, thanks for sharing that.
Cassie, any questions from you? Okay, so I'm going to ask a question that my supervisor has been asking every single agency. It's something that we ask everybody, just because it's an economic reality. So given the economic realities that we're all facing, and we know it's hard right now, including for the city, the needs are outpacing our resources, unfortunately. What would be the impact to Longmont residents and services provided in Longmont if your application was either partially funded or not funded at all?
So yeah, just like you mentioned, we know everyone is, seeing that the impact on funding and whatnot. We, at this point, we are relying a lot, I would say, don't really want to say a percentage because I'm not 100% sure, but at least 70-80% of our income is from our legal consultations, our legal cases. And so if we were to lose more funding, unfortunately, our clients would be the ones to also suffer because we'd unfortunately would have to raise our prices, which is something that for the last 20 years that this organization has been running. We have prided ourselves in being affordable. We pride ourselves in being able to help low-income families. And so it would definitely shift our program a lot to have to change prices, to have to charge perhaps what a private attorney charges. And so it would impact us tremendously.
That's actually a good question that I've been having. I mean, I don't know a whole lot. I mean, you've talked to me before. Laurel's talked to me before about this accreditation that you have received, right? You've worked hard to get this accreditation from. You get it from
the Department of Justice. Yeah,
right.
They have a program. Mm-hmm.
So does that accreditation limit you all in any way around what you can charge for your services? Yeah, what does it put any? I know it's primarily around immigration law. Does it? What are the kind of restrictions that it has, if any?
So it doesn't impact like our fees or anything. Basically,
Okay.
our accreditation is just with the offices that we're, working with. So it's the U.S. Department of State for consular processing, and then with USCIS, which is U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. They just want to know that I am knowledgeable and to the point where I can support the person that is applying, that I know the law. And so there is partial accreditation, there is full accreditation. Maria and myself are only partial representatives, just because if we became fully accredited, we would have to learn how to navigate the immigration court system, which is something that would take a lot of our time from being able to help our low-income immigrant community members. And
Why do you
so,
know that?
yeah, so it doesn't have restrictions per se, but it does have that difference between partial and fully. And at the moment, since we are only a 3 legal staff office, if we were to get into immigration court, we would be able to help maybe 5 people a week instead of like 100 people a week.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting. So walk me through this. So basically, if someone, an immigrant comes to you, because you're partially accredited, you can help them navigate that initial process. But once it comes to immigration court, then it has to go. Then you refer on elsewhere, or maybe Laurel takes it over, or yeah. Just is that am I getting that right?
So for example, like this is just an example, we are doing a lot of asylum consultations. Asylum, at the end of the day, the person is going to end up in court. So because we have seen that this is such a necessity that's been coming to our community, we have started doing consultation. Well, Laurel at this point, because Maria and myself are doing the like family petitions and whatnot, but Laurel is focusing on pro bono consultations for anyone who has or thinks they have an asylum case. We are here to explain to people how tricky asylum is, how tricky immigration court is. So we're informing them of the process, but once they need legal representation in immigration court, that's when we're referring to them to a private attorney. But at least they already know, they have knowledge of what to expect.
Okay.
But for the legal representation, we do refer to a private attorney that unfortunately is going to charge a lot more. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I've learned a whole bunch in the last few minutes. I didn't know that. So that's interesting to know. I mean, and this is just out of curiosity. How long would it take to get that full accreditation if you were interested in doing that?
I mean, we would just have to apply for full accreditation. We would have to prove that we have had training in immigration court. So we always do trainings with like Clinic, which is Catholic Legal Immigration Network. They always provide webinars. So as long as we have proof of our training, we send our application. I just did my renewal and it took, I want to say 4 months. So I want to say that it would take about the same amount of time, but I don't have a like precise.
Okay. No, I've learned a lot just in the last few minutes about that piece. So you've been seeing a lot. I mean, and again, this is just more at this point. I'm just very interested. So you're seeing these asylum cases that are growing. Are they been, I guess my question is more about, are they originating from Venezuela? Are they all over? 'Cause I know we saw that whole situation in Denver. And so I'm just wondering if that's kind of bleeding over to Boulder County or, yeah.
I would honestly say that in Boulder County, the majority of our consultations for asylum have been from Mexico.
Oh, wow.
We do have people coming in from Venezuela. We've had a couple from Colombia, but a lot of our consultations have been from the state of Zacatecas, Mexico, and Durango, Mexico. Unfortunately, depending on the country that you're from, it's kind of you're gonna win it or you're not. Anyone who's from Mexico, unfortunately, does not have any of the requirements for asylum. A lot of our community members, unfortunately, came here with false information that we are trying to clear up. So at least they know how they can move forward, what they can do to maybe not risk their cases in the future, or if they want to go ahead and move forward. But wouldn't you say, Maria, that at least in Boulder County, the last couple of consultations majorly have been from Mexico?
Yes, and unfortunately, all of the people that come to our office who are coming from Mexico, um, it's the way that, and a lot of people don't know this, and just to throw it out there, the way that an officer paroles you in at the border has a lot to do with how you process your case in the United States with asylum. So the majority of the people that are coming from Mexico are technically not being paroled the proper way. So many of them are not, there's no way for them to apply for a work permit or even just to move forward with the process. It's just like an interview with a deportation officer to get that deportation going. So that's the majority we're seeing from in Boulder County. As far as like people from Venezuela, Laurel has been working a lot with just not like advising them and like guiding them with how the asylum process works too, but also like changing the venues if they have a different court at a different like state, or let's say New York, but they're here in Colorado. She is able to help them change the venue to Colorado instead of New York, just like stuff like that. But yeah, but the majority we're seeing right now in Boulder County is from Mexico.
Okay. Yeah, I was just very interested in that. Any more questions from the board? Go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah, so just listening to you, I'm wondering if, because there was like some big companies in Boulder or around who need workers, right? So do they work with you at all or fund the courts or fund any of these cases to get what they need?
No, so unfortunately, we don't work with companies, but we do work with like other organizations. So if they have anyone with questions regarding asylum, they refer them to us. We provide free consultations for them. At this point, we are trying to get people, their work cards so they can come and just work. We are part of, I think it was mentioned in the application, if I recall correctly, that we are working on, state work authorization. And so that would mean that the state of Colorado could hire people that are undocumented, that maybe don't have the work card from the federal government to work lawfully. But the state of Colorado has the right to hire anyone that they want to hire. And so our office is definitely going to be is currently part of the process of getting this to become a reality in the state of Colorado, because it would help the majority of people who are coming in applying for asylum or looking for asylum. So if we were to get the state of Colorado to hire everyone that has been coming in, then funding for food, for housing, it would go down because they would be working. People want to work. And so we definitely are part of that. But as far as funding from bigger companies in Colorado and Boulder County, private companies, we don't get funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. If no other questions, thank you both for answering that. I'm going to stop our timer. And I'm going to give Belen, you and Maria your 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share.
Do you want to go first, Maria?
I guess I can. So I guess right now I just want to point out to everyone, I'm a DACA recipient myself as well. So I really know how much it is, like the struggle it is to come to a country and, not have anything. And right now working with the community and seeing, everything firsthand, knowing my status, it's tough. And we rely a lot on funders too to do the work to get it done. So I think it's important that we also, what you're doing right now, getting to know and talking to other organizations and like checking in on them to see how they're doing, checking in on us also, like what's new, what's going on with the immigration system, how do you need help? I think it's very beneficial for our organization as well, other organizations who are potentially doing the same thing. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I just want to say thanks for your time. Again, we are working really hard and you're all working really hard. I would like to share maybe not something related to all of this, but a little. So our office yesterday, so I am helping a woman from El Salvador who has a U.S. citizen son who joined the military. She entered without permission back in 2001. Normally, she would not be able to get her green card through her son because she needs to go back to her country, which triggers bars and she needs to stay, etc. But because he's in the military, I helped her apply for a military parole in place, and it was approved yesterday. It's the first one that has been approved that I've done and that the office has done. So we're pretty proud of that, specifically because this woman came to me where after she went to a private attorney, the cost that the private attorney gave her just to apply for the military parole in place is it's more than I'm charging her for parole in place and her adjustment of status. So again, going back to the fact that if we were to lose even more funding and have to raise our prices, would definitely affect our community members. So I know that's a little pressure, but no pressure. I just wanted to share that because we're just really proud
it's
that
important to share your
we were able
stories.
to do that for this person.
Yeah. Cassie.
Yeah, so I'm going to reveal my ignorance here, but what is parole in place? How does that work?
So parole in place basically gives, in this case, a woman, we'll call her Juana. This gives Juana a little card, white card with her picture on it that says you entered lawfully. Go ahead and adjust your status in the United States because your son is a military personnel.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, now she doesn't have to leave the country and
No,
she'll be able
yeah.
to move forward with her green card.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's important you share your stories and I appreciate it. All right. With that, anything else you want to add? Okay.
Not on our part. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start the timer. And just like I've been telling most of the other agencies, so we have one more hearing scheduled for next week, and then we do our deliberation on November 14th. Again, as you know, the reason we're asking that question is it's just a hard situation. A lot of requests, and our resources aren't growing as fast to meet all the requests. But I will get back with you as soon as we have our deliberations in the next couple of days after that. Just a quick caveat, whatever we recommend, whether you fund it or not, those are just recommendations. We have to go before council and council approves them. They typically don't change them, but they can. So, but we appreciate the work that you do and thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Have a good rest of your Saturday.
Thanks, you as well.
Bye.
All right, Mike. Not sure if you can hear me or around. Oh, there you are. Okay. We'll let Kim get back, but we can start early and get you out early.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you heard the spiel. This is being recorded and will be on our City of Longmont YouTube page. That way, other board members who couldn't make it here this morning can see it, and our community. It's a great chance for you to share your story too with those folks that visit our YouTube page. So why don't you introduce yourself real quickly? And then we'll get started. You heard who we are, but Cassie's a new board member, so she may not have heard you last time you were here. So,
all right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Mike Anderson, and I'm the executive director here at Rocky Mountain Legal Center. And we've been in Lafayette and providing direct legal services to Boulder County residents since 2010.
Awesome. All right. So why don't we get started? So I guess you heard our introductions to our friends from Immigrant Legal Center. Why don't we just jump into the questions? Any questions for Mike from the board?
Yeah, so I think I've asked this of some other people. Can you, so I mean, I think the work you're doing is great. I'm just thinking that maybe to support your position, can you give more statistics on like evictions you are able to prevent and cases you can, so that you have sort of like something concrete to back up your request?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if I'm able to screen share here, but Are we able to do that, Alberto?
Try. I don't know. You can try.
I can try. It says share window. No, maybe not.
There it is.
That wasn't what I was looking to get.
Oh, it should give you an option of which window you want to share, though. If you look underneath it, like it should tell you. It should tell you which window you want to share.
Yeah, I'm having issues here. So
okay, no worries.
Well,
no worries.
We track everything on a regular basis, on a monthly basis via an Excel spreadsheet. So we keep track of every client that we serve that's a Longmont resident. We track age, legal problem, income, gender, race, whether they live in a rural part of Longmont. Our numbers so far this year, we have directly represented 47 Longmont residents on a variety of legal issues. I can certainly talk about all of those. And we also track the hours worked for each client as well. So far through October, we've done 144 hours of free and direct legal work for people. And at $250 an hour, which is on the low end of what legal services are valued at, that comes out to over $36,000 of free legal services and value to Longmont community residents. So most of our work is in the area of end-of-life planning, medical directives, wills, beneficiary deeds, protection from guardianship, things like that. We've also gotten heavily involved in immigration work over the last few years. So we have many interesting immigration cases. We have 5 specific Longmont immigration cases. One of them is a special immigrant juvenile status case for 4 minor children who came to the country unlawfully, didn't have any status when they crossed the border. But through filing a family law custody case in Boulder County, we were able to get state court orders for custody, which then allow a juvenile immigrant to apply for this special status, which will lead to citizenship for these 4 kids. So these 4 Longmont kids are going to be U.S. citizens because of the grant provided by the City of Longmont. And typically every year, this is also the first year that we've been funded by the City of Longmont in the 14 years that we've been in operation. We're going to continue to do legal work for Longmont residents no matter what happens with the funding here today and going forward. But there is a significant need in the Longmont community. We definitely represent upwards of 100 people per year that are just Longmont residents. And every year we do at least 150 hours of direct legal work for Longmont residents. So the need continues to grow dramatically, and obviously our need for resources continues to grow dramatically as well. And unfortunately, the funding opportunities that are out there have decreased recently because of the economy. So that is going to be a future issue, I think, for many nonprofits.
So you kind of answered my boss's question, Mike. So that's the question that my boss is asking every agency, and I think you've already answered it. But I'll say it anyway, just because to honor the fact that she asks every agency. You know, given the economic realities that we're all facing, what would be the impact to Longmont services and residents that you serve if your application was partially funded or not funded? I think you've already answered that. It would impact, but you would still provide what you could.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And our whole mission when we started this organization back in 2010 was not to say no to anybody and really just try to be here to provide information and advice. A lot of times people don't actually need a lawyer. They just need some simple information and simple advice that only a lawyer could provide. But our mission is to never say no to anybody, and we're going to stick true to that mission until our final days here. So we're not going to say no to anybody regardless of our funding. So we're going to keep helping Longmont residents no matter what.
So Mike, let me ask you a question, because I see it, we've just talked to 3 or 4 legal agencies in the last hour and a half, right? And one of the challenges I see with many of our legal agencies is, a lot of their funding models are focused, either on their legal services or government funding. Um, and the best practice nonprofits is really around expanding that revenue streams. How is that working with you all?
It's working well. We have a strong private funding base.
Oh,
Colorado
good.
Kids Day every year is very, very successful for us. We're also funded by the Broomfield Community Foundation, the Boulder Community Foundation, the Longmont Community Foundation. We have many other grant sources that allow us to keep our level of services where they're at.
Great, good to hear. Yeah, because I said I've seen a bunch of budgets from a bunch of legal services folks, and a lot of their stuff is focused either government, because they get all sorts. Like I've seen VOCA 3 times this morning, right? And that's the
Right.
Victims of Crime Act, right? So I've seen a lot of federal funding in budgets this morning. But it's good to hear that Rocky Mountain Legal Center is working on getting that third, what we call the third leg of the stool, the funding stool, individuals, government, and donations. So it's good to hear that you're working on that, or foundations. It's great to hear about how many folks are helping. I just had a quick question about demographics about those folks, and I'm not sure how much you track, but I always find it interesting. You know, are they prime? It sounds like a lot of older adults you're working with.
Now there's a pretty strong diversity in Longmont. I'd say
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
if I
yeah.
had to, I could give you the exact numbers for sure, but probably 50% are over the age of 50. So it's pretty diverse ages.
Okay. I guess
There
I
are,
was just
interestingly
wondering.
too, what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this across the board too, there's a lot more women that seem to seek out our services than men. A pretty disproportionate amount of women that seek our services more than men.
Okay. I guess
I'm
the
not
question
sure
I have,
why.
like, as you continue to, because I think you're a growing organization, and I'm wondering about, as you continue to grow your sphere of influence in Longmont, about, connecting you with the senior services to see, partnerships there that might be potentially explore as you continue. It sounds like your footprint in Longmont is growing on a yearly basis.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're very excited too. We have connected with the Longmont Senior Center, and we're starting in January, and then again in March, we're going to do a 2-hour end of life planning seminar only for Spanish-speaking residents of Longmont. So
That's
we
awesome.
do that seminar presently at the Lafayette Senior Center on a monthly basis. It's limited to 12 participants, but it's sold out months in advance. There's no charge for coming, but it's booked months in advance. We've been doing that for 5 years now at the Lafayette Senior Center. So we're super excited to get this going with the Longmont Senior Center for Spanish-speaking people only, starting in January.
That is great to hear, Mike. Any other questions from the board? All right. In that case, I'm going to stop our timer. And I'm going to give you, Mike, your time. You have 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share with the board.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So yeah, once again, thanks for having me here today and asking great questions. We're always happy to share what we do for the community with people, and love to have the actual community resources that we're all connected together. The referrals we get from the City of Longmont are growing exponentially. We greatly appreciate that. And what's also nice to hear here as well, we also do satisfaction surveys that we send out twice a year. We only get about less than 5% return on those, but what we're hearing is that we're doing a good job for people, and the word of mouth referrals continues to grow exponentially as well, especially in these areas of immigration. So we have 5 active immigration cases that are Longmont residents of the 47 people that we've helped so far this year. And that's going to continue to grow dramatically as well. As we heard from the previous participant here, immigration is a great need that's going to, depending on what happens with the election in the next 2 weeks, it's going to, either way, it's going to get crazy in the next year when it comes to immigration. So So we're going to be right at the front of it all and continue to learn and help Longmont residents with their immigration problems. We've also seen a big increase too, which I think is interesting, in bankruptcy related issues, specifically for older residents. We've got 7 bankruptcy cases that we filed for people, Longmont residents. This is also a great thanks to the city of Longmont as well. These 7 bankruptcy clients, we were able to help them for free. Most bankruptcy attorneys charge a minimum of $1,500 to $2,000 to represent somebody in a bankruptcy. These people received 100% free services through this City of Longmont grant. And when people hear about bankruptcy, there's maybe a negative stigma attached with that. But all of these Longmont residents were older people that unfortunately were victims of COVID, got in over their heads with credit card debt, were getting sued by credit card companies. These credit card companies are suing everybody these days. And these people were all at risk of losing their houses. And thanks to this grant, these people are staying in the city of Longmont, keeping their houses, getting rid of all of their debt, and the rest of their lives, in my opinion, are going to be so much better not having all this consumer debt hanging over them and their assets being at risk. So thank you so much for the grant we received this year. It meant a lot to us, and we hope that we can continue to get funding in the coming year.
All right. Cassie. Okay. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate the work
All
you
right.
do, and have a great rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, you guys do the same. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. All right, thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
You bet. Bye-bye.
All right. So we're just waiting on our last. We're actually we're about 4 or 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So if you want to take a quick break, this is a great time to do it. Okay, we got a couple minutes, and we do have our person, so we'll give Kimberly time to get back. But yeah, our last folks are in the lobby right now. Oh, there's Kim. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let them in a couple minutes early. We can be done a couple minutes early. All right. Hi, Emily. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for joining us this morning. Quick caveat, this is a public hearing, so it is being recorded to be on the City of Longmont YouTube page in a later date. What we're going to do, we're going to have 50 minutes of Q&A, and board and staff will ask questions, and then we're going to give you 5 minutes of your for you to share whatever you want to share about the application and or your organization. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and let the boards introduce themselves, and then we will get going.
Okay. I think Katya was supposed to join us. I don't know if you
Oh,
see her.
yeah. Okay. So as soon as she hops on, we will let her in.
Wonderful. So, well, thank you for having me this morning. My name's Emily Emily Kleeman Martinez. Sorry, name change recently. I am the executive director of the Reentry Initiative. I'm going into my 7th full year, starting this year as the ED, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
Awesome. All right, board.
Hi, Emily. Nice to meet you. My name's Kim Strenga. This is my 2nd term on the board.
Wonderful.
Hi, and I'm Cassie Lau, and this is my 1st term on the board, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. I'm Heriberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer and ask the board if they have any questions for Emily. Okay.
I don't think.
I actually do have questions. And I'm gonna start with my the heavy question first, just because it's a heavy question that we've been asking, that actually my supervisor, Christina Pacheco, our Human Resources Director, has been asking everybody. And so I'll start with that question, and then I'll jump into some of my questions. You know, given economic realities and the fact that needs and requests are outpacing resources, what would be the impact to Longmont services if your application was either partially funded or not funded at all?
Very fair and good question. So, knowing that the landscape for funding is needed, much more needed by other organizations, Mike, starting out, I've this year decided that we would be okay if given partial funding, because I've applied to other granting opportunities, and we have a diversified network of funding right now for the current year of 2025 coming up. Partial funding would just help us retain our current staff and be able to continue our programming, which has been highly effective for our members that are engaging.
Awesome. Actually, looking at your budget, talk to me about your Medicaid funding. Are you guys on that waiver, or is it a different Medicaid process?
Great question. So I actually am now working with Medicaid billing services, 24/7 billing services. They are helping us with credentialing the nonprofit, the Reentry Initiative, with different insurance companies within the county that we serve, so that we can be accepting Medicaid dollars for the billable therapeutic services. And that money that we receive back, which is not a lot, quite honestly, it goes right back into the reinvestment of our wellness center. So it offsets things like the transportation, food gift cards, experiences that we want to give to our members. So it all goes right back into the program operation.
That's great.
Yes, and then just so you know where we're currently at with the credentialing services is I just started working with a contracted service last month. And so we're in the current process of, like I said, paneling our organization and providers with the insurances that our populations generally have through Medicaid. but that process can take months. So again, we need some funding to buffer us to cover those operational costs until that starts to pick up. And that hopefully will become another way that, again, we've diversified our funding and we're allowing ourselves sustainability moving forward.
All right. So talk to us. Now, the try has been around for a little bit now. What does your success rate look like? I remember you started what, 6 years ago, maybe?
8 years ago,
8 years.
officially.
8 years. Yeah,
But
officially 8
really
years ago.
6 years since we started really holding ourselves accountable to benchmarks. So.
Yeah. So talk to us about how that's going.
Oh, it's going wonderfully. So through our Working Gain Education Employment grant that only serves people on parole, they really helped us set up different benchmarks to rate success. They focused at the beginning on employment, education, and housing. So basically, how do we get someone from reentry, stably housed, stably employed, and or going to school? And as we've been doing that, we have been able to maintain a recidivism rate, which means a return to prison, under 10% for the
Oh,
last
wow.
several years, which really means we have about, a little average around 90% success rate. And the way that we do that is through a collaborative team approach. We have a blend of social workers and peer mentors with lived experience. And together they work with a member and keep them stable and have multiple outlets for resources, but under one roof. So that really has been successful for us. And then we added in the mental health therapy part, which historically has not been tracked as being a reason for successful reentry. So now what's happening is we're being approached by different entities in the system to ask us, how is our model this successful? And it really does come back to that peer model with the clinical model, because you need both in order for you to have the procedures, the operations, everything's going the right way, as well as that lived experience that our members feel seen,
Right.
heard when they walk in the door.
Yeah,
So I think
it feels.
it's
Yeah, it feels like you're building what part of your model is really, and I've worked in these type of not necessarily recover or reentry, but in poverty models before, where one of the key factors of success is that community building. It's that peer engagement, right? That sense of connection. So it sounds
exactly
like that's kind of part, because yeah, you're right. It can't just be just the clinical, which is super important, but without that social capital connection is what I would call it, right? That's key.
absolutely.
Tell us about your clients. What kind of clients are you serving here in Longmont? What's predominantly what you're seeing as far as your demographics is concerned?
Absolutely. So our members come to us by way of parole or probation. So we do diversion work through probation, meaning keeping our members accountable to the requirements they need to complete in order to get off probation. And then on the parole side, that's for anyone that's reentering from their Department of Corrections from having served time. So our population is varied in diversity. We see, I would say, a pretty, I would say around 40% to 30% diversity between BIPOC and white members that walk into our offices. However, I'm seeing an uptick in more BIPOC and women walking through, but they're coming in through the probation side, which I think is great, because we're having a chance to help divert them from going up into that elevated DOC system, and we're able to intervene with the mental health treatment that they might need in order to restabilize and stay out of the system in the future.
Awesome. And so that and I was reading through your program outcomes, and typically, that's not necessarily my purview. I don't evaluate. I do look at it. That's more the board's purview. But talk to me. I found it interesting because we just a couple of days ago, I don't know, it's been a few weeks now, I think. I read about your equine therapy. Are you partnering with Medicine Horse, or is it a separate?
No, we actually partner with a different equine coach. named Sandy. She's we met her through, I don't even know how we through another grant through CCHA. And since then, she's been offering us an array of different equine coaching and classes at the Reentry Initiative.
Wow, it sounds like equine therapy is like because we interviewed them for our health and well-being portion of the grant. So it escaped me. I thought I had a question. I'm blanking. So sorry.
Well, I can just speak to that. What we've done with the Wellness Center is we do the traditional modalities, which is, inpatient or outpatient CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, individual group settings. But what we were saying, speaking to before, the recovery capital, that is where we're going as a wellness center. We understand that there's 4 basic areas of someone's life that determine success and stability. So that would be home, health, community, and purpose. So what we've created on our model is exactly that. We handle the home things, making sure people are living where they want to live, they feel safe, and they feel stable. We work on the community part by bringing in equine coaching, song circles, which are led by, we had a wonderful partner. Unfortunately, she just moved to Hawaii, but she would come in monthly and make music with women and our staff. It was unbelievably moving. Sandy, our equine coaching partner, actually would attend those things. She now offers boundaries classes, relationship classes, emotional intelligence courses that we bring in. So those are that community piece that Katya and I have really crafted, where she'll continue to bring in an array of experiences that look like just different things, but are addressing those healing parts of trauma and community. And then from, of course, there's also just the basic recovery through our other groups.
So I guess I asked the question about medicine horse, and I it's reconnected because I wanted to learn more about your community partners because I feel like that reentry is such a complex and large situation for folks, right? So they're especially those coming out of DOC, they've been out of society, they've created their own community in the DOC, and so now they're back in places where potentially they can fall back into situations that led them to being in DOC. So just want to know who you were partnering with to help guide that.
Absolutely. So for starter, Recovery Cafe, 1, because they're right below us, and 2, because Jen has really managed a program that fits and is in alignment with what we do as far as community groups and bringing people together. So the Recovery Cafe is definitely one area or one organization. Then we work with A Way Forward. We've worked with different contracted providers. So Jason Gladys, who wrote a book on relationships, we brought him in. He's in Boulder County. We've partnered with Hope Light as far as getting people the medical needs. We also have a strong relationship with our probation officers and our parole officers. And then from there, it's nonprofit world is quite small in Longmont. So we're always at the same meetings together, at the St. Vrain meetings or the substance use advisory group meetings. So it's many of the same people, El Comite, and we're trying to actually work more together to offset needs, because we realize the funding opportunities are becoming harder to get with more of us existing. So a lot of that work. And then on top of that, our peers are coordinating with employers and housing providers. So that way we can direct place people, get them into places that they can work with us, and of course, find gainful, helpful employment.
Awesome. So those are the questions I had. If the board doesn't have any questions, I'm going to stop our timer and give you your 5 minutes.
Wonderful. Well, I just am so appreciative of all the support that we've been provided through the years from the City of Longmont. So I just want to start there. I realize where we are, and I know that it's a big ask to be fully funded. So I do want you to know that if we are even partially funded, those funds will be set for our wellness experiences and running and making sure that we can continue to bring in those really unique opportunities. Like I want to continue with Qigong. I want to have some yoga at the office. I want some more art supplies and things like that so that our members really can continue to find their healing through community experiences. But that's really all I wanted to share and say thank you.
Well, Emily, we appreciate all the work that the TRI does, the Reentry Initiative in Longmont, working with our folks that have been involved with the criminal justice system and helping them avoid re-involvement. And yeah, so basically like I said, we have one more hearing scheduled for Wednesday, and then we have our deliberation meeting on November 14th, and I will reach out immediately after that and let you know one way or the other. They are recommendations that have to go before council, and council does have the last say. They typically don't change recommendations because they trust the board, but it's their prerogative. If they want to change it, they could. So with that, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim and Catherine. We actually had ended 5 minutes early. Appreciate all the work that you do. So have a great rest of your Saturday as well.
You too.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot, Alberto. Bye.
Bye.
And Kim, bye.